So what's your official job title?
Senior mechanical engineer.
What kind of company do you work for?
This one is a very small engineering firm that's based out of Houston, dealing with the marine industry.
So do they like make boats, or what do they do?
Yep. They design ships, they design barges. We do hydrostatic studies of ship ballasting. It's just a smaller company, so the CEO always picks up different jobs, so each day is always different from one another. My last task that I had for this company was designing a LNG barge.
Barge is basically like a giant ship that hauls stuff, right?
That is correct, yeah, basically.
So you work to like kind of design that from scratch, huh?
Yeah, so we would have like a general idea of how long, how wide, and the breadth of it, to how deep it goes. And then we have to take into account like the ballasting of the barge. You want to make sure the boat's basically balanced so it doesn't heel or trim or tip over. That's one of the main important like things we have to consider. It has to be transported throughout the sea, so we have to take into account like the worst case scenario and things like that.
So you didn't specialize in like any certain part of the ship, or did you?
So basically, my task was to come up with like a steel estimate weight, because that's really important for the program that we use. We use GHS, which is a hydrostatic program that needs basically like the light ship weight of the barge, which is the weight of the barge with nothing in it besides like the steel or the tank that's included. Design that from scratch, always a challenge, but obviously there's always been barges that have been created in the past, so you could always try to mimic something that's done prior, but you can never be like exactly what's been done, depending on what the client needs and the amount of weight that's being transported, or the material that's being transported as well always comes to a factor.
Do they ever give you anything else besides like just the length and the width and the depth, or, do they ever give you any more deliverables when they're asking you guys to design this stuff?
Well, we would have like milestones of what needs to be hit each quarter, or every few weeks we would have meetings with the client to see how far we've come along, because they always want to see our work as well. Ballasting a ship is like extremely important, so they always want to verify that our work is going to be approved. It always has to be approved by another certification, which is like American Bureau of Shipping. It could be a DNV. So there's always other specs and regulations with these ships or barges that always have to be classified by another society, so that we have basically comply with those standards. So it's extremely important for us to discuss this with the client as we go along with the process of designing this barge. But this is just like an example of one big project that I was involved in.
That makes sense, because DMV in certain states, you have so many rules for cars. I can only imagine how it is with ships.
You also have like the Coast Guard as well. If we don't comply to those standards and they can't approve it, then we're in a big mess.
Do you need a minimum level of education for your job?
At least a bachelor's in engineering, bachelor of naval architecture, EIT, engineers in training, typically is what the company would always request, at least a bachelor's.
Are they looking for a minimum level of experience?
At least 5 years in the marine industry, which I had from my first position. I had a minimum of 5 to 7 years of shipping industry.
Did you always want to go into the shipping, like marine industry?
No, actually, once I graduated college, I had a few job offers out there, but I ultimately took the one that was closest to home at the time, which is in Norfolk, Virginia. I worked for the shipyard, so I got my feet wet. I started working on nuclear submarines.
Did you ever want to pursue a job in a different industry?
I would consider doing maybe more like sales engineering, like doing like technical sales, maybe marine sales. I've never held like a role where I have to like sell things. It could be a lucrative business, or if you're good at selling like components, valves, or pumps, or heat exchanger, or whatever the component is. I think that's something that I would like to do, but I would have to find like a job that would fit my background.
What is your overall job description? Like, what do you kind of do in a nutshell?
We would have a GHS, which is a general hydrostatics program. learn the program, to input the data in there, and to analyze the data that spits out the graphs, the curve, with all the weights that's incorporated. Modeling a ship using 3D modeling, such as a program called Rhino, using that in a combination of GHS to basically design it in 2D and 3D so we could picture it in our head, doing the balancing study, and then presenting that to the client to make sure that they're okay with it. And then also reviewing the ABS rules, the DMV rules, to make sure that we're in compliance with that. Doing a lot of research, going back through existing drawings of barges or ships that's already been created in the past to see the similarities. There's always been like lesson learned when you build something. There's always things that you can improve on. All those improvements and seeing what you can incorporate in your new design to make it more efficient, make it more cost effective.
Sounds like your projects go a long way. Like, when does the project actually end? Like, is it once the client has an actual physical ship, like in the harbor waiting for them? Or do you guys just make a prototype or something and then, or just give them the drawings? Or how does, like, when is your stopping point?
If the client just wants the design, then that's all we give them. But there's also times where the client would want like maybe a surveyor or an engineer to be there along the process. So obviously we submit them our design, our plan, but then we also have to be there as it's coming along as well. It depends on what the client request is. I've been involved where on like the deck plate watching them fabricate something. So it's been a wide range.
So you'll actually have to go out to the shipyard and watch them build this thing?
That, and also be like a technical authority. If say one of the drawings doesn't make sense, they would have to contact us and see, hey, can we change this? Can we modify this? So obviously we would have to do some more engineering to change certain things, or if they can't get a certain component in on time. So we're basically walking them through the process, and if they have any issues, we'll be there as like their technical lead if they have any questions, doing like the fabrication stage.
Now, what's your work environment like? Do you have like an office or a shared workspace?
It was like an office, but now since COVID, everything's done remotely, and we have the option to go to the office if we wanted to.
What made you choose mechanical engineering?
I was always good at math, good at physics. My dad's an engineer. He always raised me to go up, find a degree that when you go out, you could make money from. Ever since I was in high school, I already geared my path towards that. I applied to engineering school while I was in high school and got in. So I already knew from when I was junior or senior in high school that I was going to pursue an engineering degree, and I never looked back.
Did you enjoy your college experience?
Yeah, I went to Virginia Tech, which is a pretty big school. Back when I was there, we had a really good football team, so it was a lot of fun. Definitely a college experience. I was able to do well, study hard, and I was able to graduate with 4 years with honors. So I was really proud of myself when I was done.
Do you have any advice for anybody that, as far as like what it takes to get really good grades in school?
My advice, listen to your parents if they're pushing you, and like if you're in middle school, high school, like my parents always pushed me to do well, to excel, to always try my best. And obviously once I got to college, my parents aren't there to push me, but I was able to use what my parents taught me in high school to work hard, that ultimately things will pay off in the end. I was able to carry that work ethic from high school to college, finding the right people, good study group within like your class that you trust, be able to study is really important. Don't procrastinate when you study for tests.
What specifically made you choose the college that you went to?
My number one school of choice at the time was Georgia Tech, which I got in, but I lived in Virginia at the time. The out-of-state tuition for Georgia Tech was way too high. I knew that Virginia Tech engineering program was one of the top engineering schools in Virginia. I applied there, got in, so it was like a no-brainer for me to go there.
What would you say is the best part of your job?
Doing from the initial design to something being completely built, tested out and see. I think that's pretty rewarding, knowing that you took part in that, to creating something that I wanted to see. So I think seeing a project from start to finish, all the way through, is always rewarding at the very end. Even though it might be a lot of bumps and aches in the middle of the road, seeing the final product tested satisfactory is always rewarding.
And what's the worst part of your job?
When you make a mistake, as an engineer, there's always going to be times where you make mistakes, but you just have to own up to it. And it's normal to make mistakes, but don't dig yourself in a big hole. Learn from it. I've made mistakes throughout my career, not all the time, but I have. But I learned from it, and then I have to move forward. You can't really look back.
I would agree. If you make a mistake, own it, and then learn from it, and then move on. Can you give us an example of a mistake that you've had?
So I was working out in Charleston, South Carolina. We're doing beam testing on a MCS submarine, which is like a moored training ship where Navies train on it. So I ordered a piece of pipe that was the raw materials. They couldn't weld this pipe together. It kept on leaking when they put it back into the system, and it caused like maybe a 3 to 4 day delay.
Did you get into like any trouble, or was your boss cool with it? Did he have the attitude like, okay, you know, we all make mistakes, let's move on and learn from it?
Well, I wouldn't say in trouble. Typically with the mistake that's this big and this magnitude, they would hold like a critique at the company. So basically what that is, they'll get a few more project engineers, project managers together and myself and see like the root cause of why I did this or what led to this mistake. So you're basically in a room with like 5 or 6 other people basically asking, okay, why did you do this? What process can be improved in the future? Like a lesson learned, you know?
Yeah, I completely understand with that. With one of my jobs, somebody were to make a, you know, kind of a big mistake, they would do this like why analysis, basically.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, is that what you guys do? Like where it's like, okay, this happened, why did it happen? And you keep listing the whys until you figure out kind of where the root cause is and what you can do to prevent it in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, like maybe they need another second check behind like a younger engineer. So that's ultimately what ended up happening. I remember this case pretty well because they actually went back to all my paperwork that I've done just to make sure I didn't make the same mistake as prior. And then they also like made a new like checkoff list to have your documents signed off by another engineer. So I had to go through that process, but it was a learning curve and, you know, it's a good lesson.
Is there any skill or ability that somebody should have if they wanted a job like yours?
You use some of your engineering knowledge, but you learn a lot of it on the job itself. So if you're able to pass college, do well, you're trainable. Somebody can teach you. So I think that's really important when kids apply to jobs after college. A degree is a piece of paper that you're trainable, that you're teachable. To be able to learn, be able to ask the right questions, not being afraid to ask questions. Because being thrown into a new industry, new environment, you have to ask questions. And you can't be afraid. And if you're stuck, don't sit there and dwell on it for weeks. Ask somebody. Somebody's going to teach you. Somebody's going to show you. I'm a senior engineer. I would love for younger engineers to train them, to teach them. It makes me feel good. It's a cycle. I was in their position.
What are the biggest things that you learned once you started working? Like, what did they not teach you in school?
You have to have a balance. I think sometimes I was stressing out over jobs and I was carrying that job home and just thinking about it, dwelling on it. You have to have like a balance of like your work and life. Don't overstress yourself. I think it's really important that you have like a balance with your family, your life. You can't be carrying work home and with your family, so then you just think about work all the time. So that's something that I learned. I have to like leave work at work. At a certain time, I got to be done. I don't want to think about it anymore.